thought I would do something that I have never really done. And so I'm going to make a presentation today that will be for the first time in the event that we can get this to work. I'm going to take a look back through the work that brought me here to this stage, and I'm going to look at that work through the prisms that I looked at it when I was actually making that work. What I'll offer, however, today will be occasionally a bit of criticism, just a sort of healthy look at myself. But for now, I'm going to indulge in being selfish, and I'll share my own personal search for meaning in my design practice. So here we go. Even though I really love this slide spinning, it says so 5 minutes ago, and I wish we could turn back the clock so 5 minutes ago. All right. I have seen my world of design through a handful of prisms. The first prism through which I watched my young vision pass, I called art with function, and back then it made perfect sense. For if the process of making design was artful and the result functioned as design, well then it must have been art with function. I was young. This 11 by 14 catalog on sappy paper was designed in 2008 and reflects my lifelong and unapologetic delight in crafting artful expression. And by the way, sappy paper in the United States has a program called Ideas That Matter, and I just want to underscore how important that program is. So if any of you are familiar with that or with sappy paper, thank you. The pages of this catalog will serve as background as I retrace my path here and look critically at what I've been responsible for. And yikes. 20 years ago, a young photographer named Tom Vack and an even younger me, practicing under the name R. Valicenti Design, were simply lost. Our long talks together escalated our unhappiness and xenophobic place within this profession. Tom, the artful photographer, and me, the playful typographer / designer, were both stuck in a creative tar pit of our own design. We would frustrate ourselves with our own brand of existential questions, like, why was our creative appetite never satisfied? And where were the really challenging opportunities? Or why did our market respond as if they were blind to our form of beauty? Well, that was 20 years ago today. Our first opportunity together was to shoot and design a collection catalog for two young furniture designers, Philippe Stark and Shiro Kuramada. Back then we were paid in furniture. And actually I just sent to auction 2 of the chairs from Kuramada, and it was really good to get paid finally. It was during the process that Stark accidentally named the company that Tom and I were planning to form Thirst, and he named it 3ST in a fax transmission where he wanted to point to the third layout. Well, to this day I still practice with my profession with design's thought leaders, and I still practice under Thirst, and it still feels like the first time. It might be silly, but some days I really like taking time to imagine goofy things, such as these halftone dots extruding and morphing into kinetic matchsticks. On some level, these silly ideas really do take on a meaningful proportion. And sure, I ask myself whether I am investing time, spending time, or just wasting time. But of late, I've decided it doesn't matter. For if it feels right, and if it feels like the right thing to do, then it probably is. I've learned that when it feels right, the rightness gets embodied in whatever is crafted. Whether it is the one-off or multiple, it's through creation that we pass on the good spirit, the buzz. Even Tom could feel the buzz of my spirit when he saw this final design. And by the way, the chair is the Tom Vack chair by Ron Arad. For me, designing this catalog had but one function: to bond my spirit with the spirits of Inga Maurer, Ron Arad, Tom Vack, and everyone who comes in contact with the joy of designing, and along the way, craft a keepsake. Today, my design collaborative, as I mentioned, is still called Thirst and remains in search of the resourceful, the meaningful, the thoughtful, and hopefully the soulful. Someday, I hope to create the beautiful and maybe the wonderful. But admittedly, I still flounder about in the incredible fits of misbehaving. So with that, I thought I'd show you a minute and a half of misbehaving. There's no soundtrack. The Thirst work is work where I'm fascinated with a small studio where we make everything. We make all the images, we take all the pictures, we do all the 3D work or programming. It's harder, but it's somehow more rewarding. It's harder, but it's somehow more rewarding. Here's a recent example of misbehaving disguised as good design. A small card engraved and debossed, which saved the date for the Chicago Museum of Contemporary Art's benefit gala. Easy on the eyes and earth, a touch of function in service of the arts. 5 cards made up this year's invitation. A debossed translucent sheet of paper signaled with transparency what the invitation was all about: philanthropy. White silk-screened ink marked time and place. Laser light illuminated the mystery guess. And a French sentence set in centaur and origami introduced the entertainment. Why in French? The board at the Museum of Contemporary Art asked the same question. Why are we setting the whole thing in French except for the performer's name? And I sort of shook my head like I knew something. I said, did you know that the Metropolitan Opera in New York just refused to produce Rufus Wainwright's new opera because he insisted it be performed in French? We have to do this in French. Chicago architect Adrian Smith has designed at least 2 of the tallest buildings on Earth. He carries a Thirst design card. His new identity design looks cool, set in very thin milled stainless steel on white glass. Adrian's website completely fills any size browser window with quick-loading pictures and renderings. Adrian considers this his very own broadcast network. The 4 of us did it all, except the video that opens with a very cliché image, which you'll see. Here's a look at the functionality of Adrian's website. Let's see if it's working. Oh, here it comes. Look, it's a website. Again, in addition to the content management system on this site, we were able to do, I'm sure, what some of you are able to do, which is the program Flash so that immediately the images go full screen. We were also able to ensure that the Flash-based websites, any single page is available and searchable. And the site is smithguild.com, I believe. So if you want to check it out, there's Adrian. It's one of my clients. Lots of text, lots of stuff. This man has the world's longest resume. And they have the most fashionable staff. Like, yeah. And there's that lovely cliche image that starts their video. Okay. We did not write this copy, however, even though I agree. I once thought that if I looked out onto the world through the prism of type design, I might find that deeper meaning that I was looking for in the sublime contour or counterspace of a letter form. And occasionally that was true for me. In 2001, Thirst named and branded a fireplace designed by Chicago architect Doug Garofalo. I imagined how cool it would be to launch this product with a typeface that looked like it could be used for the signage on the Starship Enterprise. Can you imagine, like, bathroom, a loading dock? I called this font Orbit. Brochure images stoked the fire within while typeset messages profiled the product. The wood provided an X rating. This was the money shot. And this depicts the ultimate hearth. Cool Warmth was the name I gave the manufacturing company. You guys just got that. I could hear that one. It's a little slow. But just last month, Orbit showed up at the Super Bowl tailgate party. Check out these banners in this small video clip, which shines a flashlight out onto the final frontier of this type's design. This clip also comments on a new face of global dominance. The subtext of this diptych, however, remains all too familiar. It's not the journey, it's the destination.
Journey is here, Journey is live, and their signature song, Don't Stop Believin'.
Wi-Fi revolution, there was a pioneering company that commissioned Thirst to update its brand presence. This client bought the whole package, and with it came a bespoke type design and a new logo, symbolizing connections forever. Both were called Infinity. Thirst's strategic toolset, though well received, proved worthless when the company vanished as a result of acquisition just months after our work was invoiced. While the U.S. robotics branding opportunity was lost, a few years later, Infinity, the type design, was ready to set forth on its own quest for global dominance. Advertising and a personal project, a research project, if you will, were conceived, self-published, and marketed under our own brand name, Thirst Type. This 32-page catalog for a fictional art exhibition was in actuality the launching pad for Infinity. Since then, other Thirst identities carry the infinite wisdom of Infinity's development. I must tell you, however, that focusing on life only through the lens of type design has yet to reveal for me enough of design's bigger picture. But I can see the Thirst portfolio enlarge every now and then with another well-designed, yet not too tricky website. Okay, so you get the idea. Websites are like the weirdest thing to ever show. Okay, a couple more clicks. Okay, that's enough. I'm happy to report that Infinity now lives on forever, hovering right there above Donald Trump's comb-over. It says CBS. Okay, another true type design story. This saga begins with a fascination I once held for Oswald Cooper's Cooper Black Italic. Simultaneous, in another corner of my world, hundreds of my unconscious telephone doodles were being digitized. Along the way, imaginative visuals grew from simply playing with these doodles, and eventually our new forms of play took wings. Soon, stories were written and typeset in Thirst Type's new version of Cooper Black Italic, which I called Oz. Page designs accumulated and eventually turned into yet another self-published book, this one called Myth. On the pages, we told of a wedding couple, color-coded in red and light blue, living the good life in their own imaginary Garden of Eden. We even fantasized of Kitty, a guitar-playing college student who was learning to make her own music, guided only by her own sensibilities. And in a short time, Oz found its way out of our imaginary world and into the real world. Wah, 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 wah. The unconscious doodles that gave way to myth led me to even more sketchbook sketching. This time I was inspired by a conscious fascination with everything Paul Rand. Sketches came alive in Maya and Adobe's Illustrator. And the happy-go-lucky, lovesick guy that was me felt stronger by the page. The page became an alphabet book, and like nature, the alphabet's linear sequence spoke of life and mortality. But Paul Rand's work, his life's work, remains a living inspiration for me. And you can see here, as designer, I was just imagining what would have been like had I picked up right here, right when Paul was doing this Yale Press logotype. And so I did. 4 or 5 years ago, it occurred to me that after almost 30 years of life and practice in design, I was no faster at the making part of design than a university intern. Once, while placing dots, one at a time, to form the J-O-Y of joy, shown on the right, I felt little, if any, joy. It was just painful. Finally, after I did one, I said, to hell with it, I'm stepping and repeating. I had become as impatient with design's process as many of the middle management clients designers serve. Sure, Thirst could make scriptographer bang out big dot halftone patterns in a flash, but my appetite for speedy design remained insatiable, and I wanted more, not less, of that modern and intelligent design. Out of this frustration came a big bang of an idea. In just 7 days, Thirst would create a new world of speedy design. In that beginning, I suggested we convert the King James Version of the book of Genesis to binary code. I saw that it was a good thing to do, and on the second day, all of the ones had been swapped to Pepsi One cans, and all of the zeros substituted with Coke Zero cans. These market-tested archetypes of intelligent design represented the American red and blue state of mind and held an even deeper resonance when on every spread, 2,800 of these cans were recycled. Like the best illuminated manuscripts, a touch of gilding was required. And so it came to be. We taught InDesign how to underscore each character with a gold annotation and knowingly underscore every word. It was even quick to learn how to deal with hyphenations. And I saw that that was good. The very next month, after the approval of a new custom-drawn logotype for the right auctions, Thirst was asked to produce an auction catalog for Michael Boyd's collection of over 5,000 design books. Unlike the other designers in our universe, Thirst now possessed the powerful life force of speedy, intelligent design. We automated everything: rule lines, font changes, baseline shifts, rotated type, knockouts, overprints, color-coded rules and drop shadows, photo placement, and even simultaneous content revisions directly to the web. Now really, anyone who's ever worked in these programs knows how painstaking it is to go Command-D to place a photo. The real-world task of page production and the arduous act of placing and scaling 5,000 photos happened in under 15 minutes per page, and that was very good and very profitable. Only the index of large characters and a couple of large photos required this creator's touch, and I was able to bless it and do it in a relaxed fashion. And thus there was more time left for conceiving those pesky brand extensions, such as this monogram for Wright's annual Mass Modern auction. But really, since when is speed ever enough? I remember when I discovered that design could be used to record my life, and as a result, some of my private was made public, long before Facebook, Flickr, and Twitter. Those neighborhood moms were immortalized with their own home movie poster. This time, the game's on home turf. And it was during the making of this poster that I realized how those soggy curves of Cooper Black italic could be turned from cool to cooler, and hence the development of Oz, which you saw. That first time when a client entered my home office, well, it was reenacted and archived in this striking tableau of our neighbors, or starring our neighbors, Mr. and Mrs. Gaines, their son Johnny, and his two sisters. The endless hours staring into a CS3 monitor while fiddling with first-generation 3D tools and Photoshop 2.0 back when it had only one undo, no layers, and no history palette. Well, it too was preserved in the country kitchen of the Root family. Back in those early 90s, with all of our newly discovered digital skills, we were ready to do the last 3 printed annual reports for the Chicago Board of Trade, Thirst style, of course. My assistant played Uncle Sam, while the gold-stamped cover and digitally gilded ear of corn foretold the lavish excess we all indulged in until it collapsed last month. In those years, my design vision passed through the My Life filter and looked like this as it responded to and commented on America's consumer culture. catalyzed commentary became the pages of my well-designed scrapbook of my life. Even the reality of AIDS came into focus through the My Life lens. And when Wired magazine's Millennium issue needed a depiction of a sexual encounter in the year 2025, we had the touch and could play it safe. Ultimately, however, I was in search of something more. And when I experienced real human presence, I knew I had stumbled upon design's holy grail. The breakthrough came when conceiving a showroom experience for Herman Miller's 1999 Neocon. Real human presence and design came to life for me when motion capture recordings of bodies responding to Herman Miller's marketing messages were transformed into imagery. A male and female dancer were tethered. Marketeers spoke, and their every response was captured. Driven by these moments and movements, After Effects and Maya automatically plotted color and form. Our first frames picked up where the final frames of Powers of 10 by Charles and Ray Ames ended, while Calder-esque wireframes painted a new future upon this digital petroglyph. All of the imagery, including the new Herman Miller logo, would float as the code of human presence dictated where and how. Lines and dots danced to the same pulses. For the first time, there was life in these pixels. 50,000 designers passed through the 20,000 square foot showroom in just 3 days. Message-specific clips from our 51-minute video played on tri-level kiosks in various parts of the showroom, causing unexpected traffic jams. Real human presence touched everyone. Let me show you what it felt like. And note, I've added a layer for you today of the wire and stick figures so you can see for yourself the motion source. This is a very small clip. This was 1999. Technology's improved quite a bit since then, but you get the idea of what we were playing with. It's a little bit shaky. You know, we weren't very good at it. We only had 13, whatever those things are called. Now, compare the lack of real human presence in a typical keyframing. It's here that an animator determines the motion of an object over time and through space. Even though it looks pretty darn cool, you can feel the artificiality. And this grows out of the Thirst Studios, so it's not like I just picked up somebody else's work to diss. You can just feel it's not quite the same. It's trying to be the same. It's just zoomy. It's like going to the movies, you know? Okay. While design hardly needs any more artificiality, here's the context where Thirst employed technology to comment on technology. Long before the MFA design program at the College for Creative Studies in Detroit even existed, we were asked to create an awareness and buzz at the 2007 AIGA National Conference in Denver. A mirrored monitor dangles from a light bulb-like armature in a 10 by 10 space. Budgets didn't permit anyone to work the trade show booth. And so the only presence was humanoid, and it emanated from within this plastic sphere. Towards the back of the space, one could help themselves to a brochure. It was DIY on an inkjet painted carpet. By design, our storyboard visuals hinted at the MFA program's international reach, its business focus, CCS's leadership in transportation design, and a belief that design, business, and culture were at the heart and soul of this institution. For what it's worth, at the time this video was produced, there was no curriculum, no faculty, just an idea of a new kind of MFA program. Here is one of the four one of 4 minute segments. This one tells the news of opportunities within transportation design. All the sounds you'll hear are from us going and recording doors slamming and car keys jiggling.
Culture. Study design within a broader humanistic and historical cultural context. Logic and argumentation. Composition and rhetoric. Ethics and teamwork. Communication and intellectual curiosity. Environmental sustainability. Throw yourself into something that has real substance. See yourself at CCS MFA in the fall of 2008. MFA Design or MFA Transportation Design. Unlike any other two-year MFA degree program in the United States. College for Creative Studies.edu/MFA.
There was no money for a voiceover, and so a chorus of resident Mac personalities told our story. In this segment, 150 international flags waved in the corner, usually devoted to the network's logo. We layered the national anthems of these 150 countries to create the soundscape. Here's just a little piece of that clip.
Design. The designer's way of seeing, thinking and implementing is essential to business success.
The designer's way of seeing, thinking and implementing is essential to business success.
When we talked of CCS's partnership with business, the ladder was climbed by Life Drawing's cute little wooden maquette. Digital diamonds and strings of pearls dangled an illusion of success.
Understand the dynamics of commerce.
Understand the dynamics of commerce.
Study principles.
The hypnotically spinning @ symbol might well have suggested that CCS was where it's at. Our voiceover chorus closes the segment with a message to designers everywhere. Your world needs you.
The designer as maker is the heart and soul of this institution.
Designer as maker is the heart and soul of this institution.
Design transcendence.
Recent opportunities for CCS's BFA program are less of a conceptual challenge, but they do provide us with opportunities to experiment in form-making craft. Let me share a couple. These belong to a portfolio view of student work at the college. We turned it into video, and as interstitials between student portfolio work, this is what it looks like. That's right out of the old Frankenstein movies. Yeah. See, that's that unapologetic, like, whoa, that is way cool. It's the locust storm of type coming to, Just when you thought it could be worse, go back to college. And you can see there's all those little glitches in there that we're not very good at getting rid of, but it's not broadcast. Obviously, there's not much, if any, compelling human presence or deep messages in these clips, but they sure look awfully cool to me. If we were musicians, this might be Thirst practicing scales. This one's pretty juicy. And then one day I was just thinking about, what would if the Smurfs fused with the troll dolls? What would it look like? A few years ago, while on my quest to find the holy grail of real human presence, I placed an ad in the local Free Weekly. I was in search of those who shared the physical characteristics of my own personal identity. 5 to 6 feet tall, brown or black hair, expressive eyes, larger than normal nose, facial hair optional. I promised to reward those who saw themselves in the archetypical line drawing of me with $10 US, but only if they came to a photo studio on a Saturday morning, sat for a portrait, filled out a model release, and answered a simple questionnaire about their life. I also promised that each likeness of me would appear in a small book in the order of their arrival. First names only, form entry data, that's all that would be typeset in the new typeface called Apex. Rotel arrived before Rob. Surprisingly, Steve, unrelated to Todd, arrived just minutes after. Michelle was not Dave's daughter. Jose was a Scorpio like me, but a year younger. Chester arrived shortly after Geddes departed. You get the idea, or is it just me? Well, on this Saturday, I saw firsthand that others saw themselves as I saw myself. After that, designing a little book would be a snap, or so I thought. But design up until this point felt more like journalism and hardly like design. In desperation, or because I was looking for something more meaningful, I layered all of the faces on the left and right in equal percentages, and voila, a new human presence was revealed. Having layered everyone, I could see clearly how we all made up this one identity. It therefore can be said, in all of us, there's a little bit of me. But I was and am still searching for an even more meaningful experience. Got you on that one. You were paying attention. It was very good. A few years later, the Loeb Fellowship at Harvard Graduate School of Design invited a poster. Okay, I said, 10 pictures, one on top of the other. I know that makes for a powerful image, but here, without a bigger purpose, the message lives only on the surface. While up close, these dots are far more interesting to look at than the blurred pixels of that close-up layered of Rick lookalikes. The emotional reward, however, is far less compelling. So needless to say, real human presence remains elusive and cannot be commodified. Since the pursuit is lifelong, we tried again. This year's version of essentially the same assignment reached out for human presence through typography, and arguably the result of this design is even more cool to look at, but less soulful to live with. Both the micro and macro levels hold visual interest for sure. However, I don't feel much more than the presence of a passionate technocraft. Of late, I'm consciously looking at my current design assignments through the prism of storytelling. The tested filters of art with function, type design, speeded design, my life, and human presence are all at my disposal, but I'm looking for that something which reaches even deeper. 57 residents of Hoboken, New Jersey, died on 9/11. Making a memorial to them was an interesting opportunity to collaborate with architects and artists, public officials, and the Army Corps of Engineers. Everyone involved has been sincere in their role of finding the most soulful way to make space, frame narratives, and not let design get in the way. A ring of 57 crystal clear markers or apparitions surrounds an open well. The name and birth date of each citizen lost on that day is etched into the edge of the glass. A custom stenciled type is laser cut into the steel ring that surrounds the well. And there, on the 40-foot approach, the voice of the survivors is present. Bronze handrails cast stories of the survivors' memories of 9/11. We collected these personal stories through one-on-one interviews, recorded phone calls, and emails. Edited quips were then returned so the survivors could handwrite them. Their stories are compelling, and their presence of those lost endures. Even though the project has been detailed, it is still in search of final funding for a 2010 opening day. Here's another story of something which does not exist. This sketch by artist-designer Eric Levy and a photo of a small prototype light fixtures were the only clues to what the experience of Eric's very large light installation, his first in North America, might look and feel like. My concept was to turn the voice code recording of Eric talking to me on the phone from Paris about his work and this light into a virtual version of the light itself. Once processed, the recorded audio made for a 15-minute video, which we broadcast online. These stills map the narrative's visual arc, and you can see it starts out in the upper left corner, kind of modest, and then over the course of the conversation, it really electrifies. Here you can see Eric's voice visualized for that web broadcast.
My name is Eric Levy, and this is my first great exhibition in America. So I have a very strong relationship with nature because I believe that the best source of inspiration is nature through the observation or the experiences that we are living through.
You could hear the police siren in the back. Eric had these few words to say after his installation was turned on.
When Rick first talked to me about this idea, I could only imagine something in my head, and when I saw it the first time, it was, like people say, I've seen the light, but I've seen the voice. And that is a fantastic experience because the vibration of the voice that I feel when I talk in my throat has been totally transmitted into a visual. And the fact that we are zooming in and out, and it's about space, that what's voice is actually filling up the space. And in the installation itself, side by side to the sparkler video, it has exactly the same, there's moments where it blinks in the same time, and it has the same vibration, has the same depth and the same impact. And at a certain moment I just stop listening to what I say, and I only see what I project.
Being conscious of viewing design through the prism of storytelling is new for me. It demands something different, which I am finding risky, unsettling, yet meaningful. I feel challenged all over again. During the first 10 months of 2008, I practiced telling my own story. In these months, I generated over 575 drawings applying Sumi ink to 22 by 30-inch Reeves paper. I applied it with a syringe and a foam brush. These personal journal entries are part Chinese calligraphy, part Ralph Steadman and Ben Shahn, part street tag, part mood swings, part my emotional masks, part fact, part fiction, part fantasy. Every 4 to 5 weeks for over the past 15 years, I've shared my experiences with students and colleagues at universities and conferences. But being here in Africa with you feels fantastic. Thank you for this buzz. In closing, 6 months ago, Paula Scheer and I co-chaired the largest student conference ever in America. This too is a buzz. Alliance Graphique International members came to Chicago from all over the world, intent on sharing their time to talk and work with over 835 students. 31 were from Beijing. I hope to see some of you in Chicago in the future. And now a parting gift seen through the My Life prism from me to you. 5 lessons, slightly tongue-in-cheek, sure to yield a blissful life in design. Lesson number 1, practice seduction. Number 2, represent presence. Indulge knowingly. And on the left it says, this is my brain on chocolate. Serve happiness. And master humility. This says, so I'm a genius, but it doesn't make me special. Thank you.